I never expected to be the hero who saved the CEO's life until I discovered he was a single dad. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other Tuesday. The morning sun peeked through the window, casting a warm glow that felt almost deceptive. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could taste the bitter edge of uncertainty in my mouth. I stood in front of my tiny apartment mirror, hair a mess, heart racing. My best friend, Jenna, had called just the night before, her voice shaking with excitement. "This is your chance," she insisted. A chance to impress a local giant, the CEO of a booming tech company. Carson Hayes, a name whispered with awe and intrigue. But who was I to tackle an interview like that? Just a struggling barista with dreams too big for my reality. Hours later, I stood in the sleek lobby of his skyscraper. Marble floors reflected the nervous energy of employees rushing by. I felt swallowed by the noise, each heartbeat drumming louder in my ears. A deep breath, and I strode forward, trying to appear composed. But the moment I stepped into his office, there was an uncanny stillness. It was as if time held its breath. He was striking. Dark hair, piercing blue eyes that felt like they could see right through me. But there was something else, something more raw. A flicker of weariness crossed his face. He was a man burdened, like the weight of the world rested on his broad shoulders, yet he wore his suit with an effortless grace. "Thank you for coming," his voice was smooth, yet laced with an undercurrent of concern. My pulse quickened. He seemed distracted, glancing at the clock, his fingers tapping nervously against the desk. I caught a glimpse of a photo tucked in the corner, a little girl with wild curls and a bright smile. There it was, the two worlds colliding, the powerful CEO and the single dad. Then it happened. A sudden intake of breath, his hand gripping his chest as he doubled over. My heart dropped. "Carson." I rushed to his side, panic setting in. Everyone but us dissolved in that moment. I could feel his pulse drumming, erratic. My hands trembled, a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. People began to gather, whispers rippling through the crowd. I could taste the tension, feel the fear creeping in. The world was spinning, and all I could think was, I have to do something. "Someone call 911. I shouted, my voice echoing against the stark walls. I had no choice. I leaned down, looked right into those terrified blue eyes, desperately hoping to see something familiar. "Hope, maybe," he nodded, an almost imperceptible movement. That glance ignited a determination inside me. I pressed my hands to his chest, trying to will strength into him. The silence was deafening. I could hear my heart beating in my ears. The heaviness in the air felt charged with uncertainty, and just like that, I found myself entangled in a web of mystery, emotion swirling like a storm. What secret was Carson holding? What lay behind those stormy blue eyes? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The ambulance arrived with blaring sirens that shattered the hush, bringing a chaotic rush of paramedics into the office. I stepped back, my hands still trembling from the adrenaline, and let them take over as my words spun back into focus. They swiftly assessed Carson, moving with practiced precision, but my heart remained anchored to him. As he was wheeled away, pale and unconscious, the world melted into a blur. Phone calls were made, and faceless voices hovered around me, asking questions I couldn't begin to answer. I was a stranger in this corporate jungle, an unwelcome intruder who had burst in at the wrong moment only to momentarily shine before the reality of the situation crashed down. The echo of every heartbeat in that sterile office lingered in my mind. "Get it together, Elena," I murmured to myself, gripping my phone tighter, Jenna's supportive voice a flicker at the back of my mind. I should have been focused on my own job interview, but my instincts were tethered to the man who had just collapsed before my eyes. After an eternity, I found myself sitting in a lonely waiting room, harsh fluorescent lights giving everything a clinical edge. I could feel the weight of stares from other patrons as they flicked their eyes toward me, curiosity mingling with pity. I kept my gaze glued to the door, as if willing it to burst open and reveal him, healthy and whole. Deep down, I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could do was wait. It felt like hours before a doctor finally appeared, his expression grave yet compassionate. "Miss Pierce, right?" he asked, pulling off surgical gloves. I nodded, feeling the lump in my throat grow heavier. "Carson is stable now but will need to stay under observation for some time." It was a small heart attack, stress-related. I couldn't help but flinch at the words. Stress. Carson Hayes, the iconic CEO admired by so many, behind his success was a man crumbling under an unseen weight. The reality of his life unfolded before me like pages from a novel I'd never dared to open. "Can I see him?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The doctor hesitated, glancing back toward the room where Carson rested. "He'd probably prefer to see family," he said gently. I felt a punch in my gut at the mention of family, the image of his little girl flaring in my mind. Is there anyone? I asked, my heart racing as I fought the urge to burst into tears. "Anyone who can be with him." I could see the doctor wrestle with my request, but then he sighed. "I mentioned to him that you're here. He might welcome the company." His eyes carried the weight of unspoken burdens, and I wondered if he understood that I was here for more than just a casual visit. I needed to know how the man who had unknowingly drawn me into his world was doing. I waited for what felt like a small eternity before I was finally allowed to enter. The room was dimly lit, and static filled the silence, only interrupted by the soft beeping of the heart monitor. Carson lay there, fragile yet powerful, a juxtaposition that twisted my heart. I took a step inside, every nerve ending buzzing with a mix of apprehension and hope. "Hey," I breathed, my voice a mere whisper in the quiet. Slowly, his blue eyes blinked open, and for a moment, recognition washed over his features. "Elena," he croaked, confusion mingling with relief. I nodded, squeezing the railing of the hospital bed. "I'm here, why you?" he whispered, a fierce vulnerability breaking through a facade I had thought impervious. "You shouldn't have seen that, shouldn't be here. I couldn't just walk away, Carson. You need someone," I said, my voice trembling, as emotions began to unravel. "I know this isn't what you expected, and believe me, it isn't what I expected either, but seeing you like this put everything in perspective." He flinched slightly, gaze hardening. "You don't know me. You only caught a glimpse," he replied, each word delivered with a guarded precision. "I'm not the man you think I am." In that moment, I felt the fatigue of his battles wash over me. "Maybe not," I admitted, bracing myself for his next words, "but I want to understand." The silence between us was thick, yet I could sense the storm brewing behind his eyes. It was something fragile, trust laced with fear. Deep down, I knew he was wrestling with not just his health, but the very essence of who he was. Perhaps in sharing his burdens, we could find glimmers of hope for both our shattered realities. But just as I felt a flicker of connection cracking through his wall, the door swung open, and a small figure darted in, her curls bouncing with every step. The little girl's eyes locked onto her father, a look of sheer panic morphing into a radiant gasp of relief. "Daddy!" she cried, rushing toward him. I stepped back, my heart sinking as I realized I was being pushed to the side, the role of his protector usurped by the one person who mattered most. In that moment, my hope began to unravel, and the weight of my own burgeoning feelings pulled me down further. As I retreated into the shadows, eternally torn between drawing closer and understanding my place in his life, I feared not just losing Carson, but perhaps never truly knowing him at all. And in that moment of deepening conflict, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message popped up, the screen illuminating with chilling clarity. I know what happened today. We need to talk. It's about your father. Cold dread flooded me. My heart sank with an unexpected shift. One battle was over, but another was waiting to unfold. The sterile smell of antiseptics hung in the air like a reminder of vulnerability, reminding me of the fragility of life within those hospital walls. Carson's face softened as his daughter clung to him, the child grounding him in a way I couldn't fathom. She was a beacon of innocence amidst the chaos, a stark contrast to the grown-up problems weaving a tapestry of pain in our lives. I retreated further into the corner, my heart twisting uncomfortably as I watched them. Her laughter floated in the air, a melody that didn't quite fit the dim reality of the hospital room. I felt like an intruder in a moment that belonged solely to them. But just as I considered slipping away completely, Carson's eyes flicked toward me. Elena, he said, his voice husky, the weight of her small body pressing against his as he glanced between us. This is my daughter, Mia. I forced a smile, feeling warmth blossom even in the midst of my growing confusion. Hi, Mia. I'm just a friend of your dad's, I said, crouching to her height, my heart swelling for a moment at the touch of her small, trusting hand reaching for mine. Are you here for the funny videos? Mia asked, her eyes sparkling with wonder. Carson chuckled softly, and for a brief moment, the pain in his eyes receded. Yes, the funny videos are what brought me here, I replied, playing along with the innocence of our childhood. But as I settled into the interaction, a sinking feeling lodged itself in my gut. The discomfort of the situation rushed back, the message on my phone still vibrating through my thoughts. I tried to suppress the irrational jealousy twisting in my chest, knowing so intimately the love and responsibility that tied Carson to this little girl. She needed him, and I had barged into their lives uninvited. Mia's laughter dissipated as she leaned her head against Carson's shoulder and he winced slightly, possibly reminded of the fragility of this moment. The way he held her close, wrapping a protective arm around her, ignited something within me, the desire to protect both of them, yet clearly understanding that my place was uncertain. As the minutes passed, I felt like an outsider looking in on an unspoken bond. Jenna's voice echoed in my thoughts, urging me to give it time. You must find out what this means for you before chasing shadows. But how could I figure anything out when everything felt so muddied? Carson shifted his gaze back toward me. We should get her home soon. The somberness in his tone cut through my heart. There was something in his expression, deep concern mixed with a glimmer of being overwhelmed as his fingers stroking through Mia's hair betrayed a fragility I hadn't seen before. Can I come with you? I blurted out before my mind could catch up to my heart. The words slipped unguarded from my lips. The very idea to offer support sent warmth skittering through me, although I couldn't shake the feeling that I was overstepping. His brows knitted together as he deliberated. Are you sure? It's a lot, especially with the situation at hand. I nodded, meeting his searching gaze. Yeah, it'll help however I can. You shouldn't have to face this alone. A flicker of gratitude danced through his blue eyes, but before he could respond, the door swung open again, and another doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Mr. Hayes, we need to discuss the best course of action for your recovery. Give me a moment, he sighed, glancing back toward me and Mia. I caught a hint of desperation in his eyes. She wanted me to stay, but the weight of the world rested heavily on his shoulders, showing him as someone who constantly balanced between caregiving and his own challenges. Daddy, can I have a cupcake when we get home? Mia piped up, her innocence slicing through the tension that hung in the air. Well, see, sweetheart, he replied, tugging her closer as if holding onto her would stave off the impending reality pressing down on us. But only if you finish your homework first. Mia nodded vigorously, her curls bouncing like her spirit. Carson's determination to maintain some sense of normalcy for her filled me with warmth and sorrow all at once, my mind catching the glimpse of just how much ground he had yet to cover, how much help he actually needed. As the doctor began to speak, I stepped into the hallway, allowing them to have their moment of privacy, even as the weight of my own anxiety wrapped tightly around me. The message on my phone felt like an iron shackle binding me to shadows of my past. I needed to know what my father had done, why this moment felt tethered to my own struggles. The metallic taste of fear lingered as I reluctantly stepped deeper into my thoughts, recalling the strained conversations I had so long tried to bury. The mere idea that whatever secret had emerged about my father could unravel the delicate threads of connection I felt toward Carson made my stomach churn. As I paced the hallway nervously, the flickering lights overhead blurred beneath the sheen of tears I fought to contain. Was I a fool for wanting to be a part of Carson's world when my own past was closing in around me? Just as I voided myself of the question swirling in my mind, my phone vibrated again. I glanced down to read the chilling message once more. "We need to talk. It's about your father." Suddenly, those words morphed into an ominous storm cloud looming over my head. Heart racing, I couldn't shake the fear that the closer I got to Carson and the more tangled his life became with mine, the larger the weight of my past would bear down on us all. As if reading my turmoil, the door finally swung back open. Carson stood there, eyes bright with resolve, but shadowed beneath the weight of reality. Our gazes locked, a silent understanding passing between us that neither of us was equipped to unravel just yet. I could see the walls he'd built were already beginning to crack, just as my own were about to descend under new pressures, and then that unexpected kindness reflected in his eyes melded with the chaos of my own brewing storm, leaving us both standing at the precipice of sharing what lay beneath our surfaces. The soft hum of hospital machinery filled the air as Carson took a deep breath, visibly steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. My heart raced at the sight. There was a fragility to his strength that both drew me in and terrified me. How could someone so stoic struggle beneath the weight of unseen burdens? "Let's go," he said, his tone steady but distant. He placed a firm hand on Emma's shoulder, a gentle yet protective gesture that spoke volumes about his need to shield her from uncertainty. She looked up at him with wide eyes, trusting and innocent, desperately seeking reassurance in his presence. As we stepped through the automatic doors into the main atrium, the bustling paths of nurses and patients seemed to blur. I took a moment to collect myself, still grappling with the message on my phone that haunted my thoughts like a specter. "Are you okay?" Carson's voice broke through my reverie, concern etched across his features as he studied me. "Yeah, just a lot to take in," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Mia tugged at her father's shirt, her small hand gripping tight. "Daddy, can we go to the park after? Please." Her eyes sparkled with an enthusiasm that momentarily lifted some of the heavy weight in the air. "Of course, pumpkin. But let's make sure you finish your homework first, remember." Her enthusiastic nod filled me with warmth, touching that part of me that longed to nurture and protect. In that instant, I also realized how desperately I wanted to become a part of their Levisa shrine of stability amidst storms I could not yet comprehend. But the gnawing uncertainty in my own heart barred me from that dream. I was still tethered to shadows of my past. "Carson," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to talk to you about something important." The corners of his mouth twitched as he tilted his head, his expression searching. "What is it?" "I think my father is involved in something that could." My voice trembled slightly, caught between the urge to spill the truth and the fear of what that meant. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly, the warmth giving way to a cautious alertness. "Could what?" he pressed. "Could affect both of us," I finally admitted, my heart racing as uncertainty danced in the spaces between us. His expression darkened briefly, understanding dawning across his face. "Is it serious?" "Yes." The weight of the word settled between us, thick and heavy. Mia stood innocently between us, gnawing on her lip as if sensing the tension. My instinct urged me to wrap her in a hug, to shield her from the burgeoning storm that loomed just beyond our fragile connection. "Let's get home first. We can talk then. We'll also have that cupcake, right?" Carson's attempt to redirect our focus back to the lightness Mia needed tugged at my heartstrings, reminding me of his commitment as a father. As we made our way outside, the cool air felt like a welcoming embrace against the suffocating heat of the hospital. But even as I breathed it in, the looming fear of revelation began to gnaw at my resolve. The drive was punctuated with snippets of playful chatter from Mia, her joyous laughter filling the car and momentarily granting solace against the weight of my pending confession. Cassie's eyes flickered occasionally to the rearview mirror, watching her with pride, and I felt warmth blossom within me at being part of this transient moment of normalcy. But beneath the laughter, my thoughts remained fogged with anxiety. What if my father's secret shattered the innocent bond forming between us? When we finally arrived at their home, a cozy little place decorated with paint smudges and crayon drawings, the warmth of their shared space enveloped me. It felt alive, filled with memories yet to be made. Yet at the same time, a nagging voice whispered in the back of my mind, "Do you really belong here?" As Mia scurried inside to grab her homework, Carson turned to me, the moment heavy with unspoken words. "What did you mean when you said your father could affect us?" His voice cutting through the silence felt like both a plea and a challenge. I hesitated, grappling with the torrent of emotions raging within: fear, regret, hope, all thrumming together, an unseen tempest threatening to explode. If I told him the truth, I risked everything: the closeness we had begun to build, the connection that briefly illuminated the shadows encasing us both. Maybe it would be better if I began, but his gaze, fierce and imploring, held me captive. "Please, Elena. Don't shut me out. If we're going to figure this out, we need to be honest with each other." A swell of appreciation mixed with fear tugged at my heart. It's in that very moment that I knew I had to trust him, not just because he deserved it, but also because I desperately wished to have someone to lean on. As Mia returned with her folder, perched on the edge of the couch, her face beaming with anticipation, the gravity of my choice hung above us like a dark cloud, ready to burst. Would I take the leap and unveil the hidden truth, or would I tuck it all away, guarding myself at all cost? I began, feeling the weight of the moment frame itself into something monumental. "I need to tell you about my father." Just then, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, followed by the clattering of dishes and a frantic shout. My heart jumped as I spun around, and our eyes locked, both of us grappling with our uncharted paths as our peaceful moments shattered like glass. Mia's face went pale, her smile replaced with confusion, casting doubt into the air. "Daddy, are you okay?" As we rushed toward the sound, I could feel the fragile thread between us stretching, but I couldn't help but wonder, would it snap under the weight of the truths we had yet to share, or would it become our lifeline? The clatter of dishes continued to reverberate in the house, a chaotic symphony that masked the storm brewing in the depths of my thoughts. We rushed towards the kitchen, adrenaline coursing through my veins like wildfire, my heart hammering against my ribcage. Cassian was at my side, his presence a strange mixture of strength and anxiety, his gaze already scanning for the source of the disturbance. The kitchen doorway loomed ahead, a threshold into a mess that felt all too symbolic of the chaos within me. As we stepped inside, I was greeted with a disarray of utensils scattered across the floor, a broken plate lying in shards, and Mia standing frozen near the counter, her eyes wide with worry. "Daddy, I'm scared," she cried, her voice small and shaky, a stark contrast to the vibrant spirit that had just moments ago filled the living room with laughter. Carson rushed to her side, kneeling beside Mia and pulling her into a protective embrace. "Shoo, it's okay, sweetheart. I'm right here," he soothed, effortlessly stepping into the role of the calm amidst the chaos. I watched him, my heart swelling with affection for both of them, but the growing dread in my stomach stirred as I recalled my impending revelation. Here was Carson, a dedicated father who had his daughter's well-being at the forefront of his heart, and I feared that my truths could unravel the very fabric of their world. "What happened?" I said, kneeling across from Mia, willing my voice to be steady. Her little face crumpled at the sight of the broken plate, as though the physical fracture echoed her emotional distress. "I was just trying to help," she whimpered, biting her lip, tears threatening to spill. I wanted to get the cookies for us, but her words trailed off, frustration etched across her features. "Oh, Mia," I whispered, instinctively reaching out to brush a tear away from her cheek. "It's okay. It was an accident. Carson glanced at me, gratitude mingled with the weight of concern in his gaze. You handled that well. He allowed his focus to return to Mia, a soothing hand stroking her hair. Next time, just ask for help, alright? She nodded slowly, her breathing steadier now as she leaned against him. The warmth of their bond enveloped me like a soft blanket, yet the chill of my unshared secrets threatened to pierce through, creating a rift that I could almost feel in the air around us. But amidst the lingering uneasiness, a small flicker of kindness settled in my heart. I gathered myself and said, how about we make more cookies together? That way, we can make sure we don't drop any. Mia's eyes brightened just a bit. You want to bake, too? Absolutely. I could use some cookie-making lessons, I replied, forcing a smile that ignited a glimmer of trust returning to her gaze. As we began to clean up the kitchen, the tension seemed to dissolve slightly, filling the space with a camaraderie that felt heartening. Carson moved around efficiently, a gentle authority in his actions, piecing together the remnants of the chaos as Mia and I walked side by side, giggling from time to time over the ridiculousness of the broken plate. Yet, as I caught Carson's eye amidst the clattering pans, I felt the weight of odds against us deepening. The longer I put off telling him the truth, the more solidified that heavy barrier between us felt. I was a poser in a play of no mercy, and the longer I stood in the spotlight with them, the more inevitable the fall seemed. Once the kitchen was restored to a semblance of order, we gathered our ingredients, a mixture of flour, sugar, and butter, leaving faint traces of powder reminders of the delightful chaos we had created. I stood between them at the counter, sharing playful banter with Mia while Carson measured out precise amounts of sugar, keeping a watchful eye over his daughter and me. The simplicity of the moment warmed my heart. I was reminded of the beauty that could be found in mundane tasks. But then, as the smell of vanilla wafted through the air, a sharp buzz rang from my phone, startling me. I glanced down to see a message from an unknown number. Single, piercing question that struck through every layer of joy I had just embraced. Are you ready to face the truth? A jolt of anxiety raced through me, darkening what had, moments ago, felt like a hopeful interlude. I turned my phone face down, guilt pulling in the pit of my stomach as I faced Carson and Mia, who were blissfully absorbed in rolling cookie dough into little balls, their laughter spilling out like melodies from a hidden orchestra. Everything alright? Carson asked, a hint of concern in his voice as he caught my pensive glance. Yeah, just a reminder about work, I said, my voice awkwardly strained, hoping he wouldn't prod any further. He nodded but didn't look away entirely, the intensity of his gaze betraying an urgency that left me feeling exposed. In that moment, I realized I was standing on the precipice of too many conflicts. Life was demanding more from me than I was prepared to give. As the cookies baked, the warmth from the oven cocooned us in a fragrant embrace, but inside, I felt myself teetering between fear and the desire to leap into trust. There lingered a silent agreement between us. This bond felt sacred, yet it was built upon the very secrets that threatened to tear it apart. When the timer dinged, Mia let out a squeal of delight, bouncing up and down as though the cookies were a grand victory. But instead of allowing joy to settle in, I felt my heart tighten. The revelation of my father's influence weighed heavily over me like a dark cloud waiting to unleash its torrential rain. As we gathered around the cooling cookies, my phone buzzed again, more insistent this time. I hesitated, torn, staring into the chaotic yet tender world they had created, and knowing what I might lose if I didn't take a stand now. With every ounce of courage I could muster, I opened my mouth to share my truth, the cookies forgotten in front of us along with the laughter that had just filled the kitchen. But, just as I began, there's a crash outside, their low rumble, like thunder that echoed ominously, prompting a sudden silence that seized the air and froze the moment. Mia's face turned toward the window, her innocence now morphing into apprehension. What was that? The question lingered in the air, heavy and foreboding, mirroring the uncertainty that continued to throb in my heart. As Carson's brow furrowed and my phone buzzed once more, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, and the storm looming on the horizon felt unpredictable and violent. Stay here, Carson instructed, his voice steady as he moved toward the door. The tension coiled tightly, and I wondered if this storm would separate us or draw us closer together. But as Carson turned to look back at us protective and resolute, the weight of my truth hovered like a pendulum, swinging between potential freedom and heavy chains, dancing perilously close to the edge of revelation that could change everything. The chaos from the kitchen still echoed in my ears, but now an ominous silence anticipated what lay just beyond the door. I watched as Carson stepped out, his strong figure melding into the growing shadows of dusk. Every second stretched, wrapped in tension as I clutched the countertop, my hands shaking slightly. The warmth from the oven contrasted with the chill racing down my spine. I could feel the impending storm both outside and within me. "Mia, can you help me get the cookies ready?" I asked, forcing my voice to remain calm despite the turmoil brewing beneath. She nodded, her face scrunching in concentration as she helped me transfer the still-warm cookies onto a cooling rack. But as we moved, the echoes of the unsettling noise outside lingered in my mind, urging me to confront the other storm looming just beneath the surface of our fragile happiness. "I think we should check on him," Mia said, her eyes bright with concern, reflecting an innocence that should never be burdened by the weight of adult fears. The small lines of worry creased her young brow, perfecting an image of a child caught between wanting to play and knowing something was wrong. "Let's give him a moment," I suggested. "He'll be right back." But every fiber of my being knew I was lying. Moments felt like hours as anxiety gnawed at the edges of my mind, wrapping its fingers tighter around my thoughts. The buzz of my phone had now become a relentless siren, pulling at the strings of my conscience. The message was still on my mind. I could almost feel the unspoken threat of it calling around me, intertwining with the affection I held for Mia and Carson as I was quickly becoming aware that the truth I harbored could dismantle the fleeting joy we had found together. I tried to channel my focus back into the baking task, determined to shield Mia from anything more than sweet flour-covered fun. But before I could finish, the world outside felt like it was collapsing, filling the air with a thick tension, and I knew instinctively that I couldn't prolong the inevitable. When I finally found the courage to step toward the door, Mia tugged at my shirt, her small voice barely above a whisper. "What if there's something bad out there?" I knelt down to her level, kneading the dough in my hands. "Sometimes, the world is scary. But we have to be brave, especially for those we love." My words tasted bitter as they left my mouth, a reminder that I was holding on to my own fears that were far more insidious than any outside danger. Carson stepped back into the kitchen then, his face a mask of intensity mixed with relief. "It was just the car backfiring," he said, attempting to bring back a semblance of calm. Yet, I couldn't shake the feel of dread which hung heavy in the air like an unwanted guest. "Good to know," I said, forcing a lighter tone as I turned back to Mia. Yet the emotional fracture within me seemed to widen, and an unseen storm brewed on the horizon of my mind. As Mia scrambled to get her hands on the cooling cookies, I caught Carson's questioning gaze. "You all right?" he asked quietly, his voice a low rumble as he brushed past me, his presence both grounding and disarming. I nodded, but deep down, hesitation hung in the balance between truth and trepidation. "I need to tell you something," I admitted, the words finally spilling from my mouth, but just as I prepared to step into the light, my phone buzzed relentlessly once more, cutting through my resolve. A quick glance at the screen revealed a follow-up message: "You have until tomorrow. Do not make me come looking for you." Panic seized my chest, and I found myself standing at an emotional crossroads, torn between the burdens of truth and an isolated existence. I started, but the sound of the cookie timer ringing broke through my thoughts, grounding me for a moment in the familiarity of baking cookies. Mia cheered, excitement blooming in her features as she rushed to the oven, oblivious to the knife's edge of tension that balanced between us. Yet in that moment, I could see how fragile our bond truly was, held together by smiles but fraying. Underneath the silent weight of the truth that loomed like a storm cloud just waiting to unleash. As we all gathered around the countertop to celebrate our delicious batch, a colorful array of greens and reds reminding me of the vibrancy surrounding us. I stole a glance at Carson. He had returned to the father role, radiant with pride and laughter, but I could see the flicker of concern linger in his eyes. I felt so far away, as if I was standing on the other side of an invisible glass wall, a spectator to a happiness I feared I would soon shatter. In that moment, I chose to lean into the warmth surrounding me, focusing on the laughter of Mia and the sweet scent of baked goods. But as my heart wrestled with the unspoken, a sudden crash outside the window jolted me again, much louder this time, dragging my attention back into the depths of uncertainty. What was that? Mia asked, her voice trembling just under the surface of innocent curiosity. The playful energy in the room shifted, and as all three of us turned our attention to the fleeting shadows visible through the glass, I held my breath, trying to steady my racing heart. Cousin moved instinctively toward the window, brows knit in concern, while I felt an inexplicable chill run down my spine. "Mia, stay close to me," I whispered, locking eyes with her as Cousin glanced back with an expression that carved dread into my heart. The unknown outside felt too much like the untold truths I had buried. Before I could prepare myself, Cousin's voice sliced through the tension. "There's someone coming up the driveway." The weight of that simple declaration anchored somewhere deep within me, sending a spark of dread mingled with anticipation rushing through my veins. The stakes had just been raised, and in that moment, I could no longer ignore what was waiting to be revealed. The world outside felt like a prelude to the unraveling that was about to begin, and I held on to the idea that perhaps this could be a moment of hope, a chance to regain control of my spilled secrets before they impeded the fragile facade of our newfound sanctuary. The chilling moment settled between us like fog, thick and suffocating. Cousin's instincts ignited a protective fierceness, and I could see the muscles in his arms tense as he peered out of the window, his silhouette casting a shadow like a sentinel prepared for anything. The noise outside gnawed at me, crawling under my skin and sending tremors of possibility through my heart. "Mia, let's go into the living room," I urged softly, trying to guide her away from the growing threat. She hesitated, her small face crinkled with confusion, but the urgency in my voice softened her grip on the countertop, and she shuffled toward me. "What if they want to take us away?" she asked, her innocent mind grappling with scenarios shaped by stories she'd only heard. That notion struck like a match to dry kindling inside my chest, and I knelt down so our eyes could meet. "Mia, listen to me. No one is taking us anywhere, okay? We're safest right here," I promised, masking the uncertainty creeping through my veins. I glanced back at Cousin, worry stitched across his face as he glanced out towards the approaching figure, still uncertain of the intentions hiding behind the shadows. I shuffled us into the living room, my heart racing faster with each step. I could feel Mia's small hand gripping mine, her unwavering trust anchoring me amid my own rising fears. "There's nothing to worry about, sweetheart," I repeated, even though inside, I could sense an impending storm closing in. As we settled onto the couch, a flickering idea of courage and vulnerability battled in my mind. I kept my eyes trained on Cousin, his expression bespeaking a determination that belied the uncertainty stirring in my own heart. I had often thought he was a pillar of strength. Perhaps he was more human than I had considered. The world outside felt dangerous, but this was my opportunity to lean on him, just as he had leaned on me. "What's the plan?" I finally asked, infusing my tone with the steadiness I desperately needed. Cousin turned to me, his eyes reflecting a whirlwind of emotions, threads of fear intertwining with the determination to keep us safe. "Well, see what we're dealing with first," he replied, his voice steady, a commanding presence amid the turmoil. "No heroics, okay? We assess and react. We have to protect Mia." Mia called against me, seeking comfort in my embrace, the innocence of her presence lighting up a shadow that had begun to loom over everything. I reached out to stroke her hair gently, hoping the simple act would ground us, shield us just a little longer from the uncertain danger closing in. With every second that fell, anticipation warped into something brutal. I could feel it push and pull of emotions as new fears swelled, tension sharpening between the three of us. I wanted to tell Cousin about the message haunting me, but each word was trapped in a cage of fear, unwilling to break free. The sound of footsteps drew closer, quickening my pulse. Cousin stood, scanning every corner of the room. "Stay close to each other," he instructed, his gaze flitting between the window and us. "Whatever happens, I want you safe." There was an unsettling calm before a massive fatigue swelled within me, clawing against the tumultuous waves of anxiety. But as I looked at Mia and Cousin, I could almost taste the promise of safety lingering about an unexpected warmth in the face of danger. Just then, a knock sliced through the silence of the room, reverberating into the edges of my consciousness like the crack of thunder. It sent chills cascading down my entire spine. Do you think we should answer? Mia murmured, her voice a fragile whisper. No, Carson said firmly, eyes locked onto the door. We wait and see, but the word beyond the door was ceaselessly patient. Each tick of the clock paused with inevitability, heightening every sense of impending peril. For every moment that passed, I felt a deeper resolve settling in, as if I were clinging desperately to the few threads of hope knitting our reality together. Carson, I started, but my voice cawed into silence, leaving me frozen in the discomfort of my secrets. I wanted to speak out about the message that threatened our sanctuary, yet the fear of shattering this fragile peace kept me silent. Then suddenly, the door swung open with a confident force that sent my heart racing again. A tall figure emerged, silhouetted against the fading daylight, a striking contrast to the calm darkness that enveloped the room. A moment of confusion caught up with me as I squinted through the growing shadows. Is this where the cookies are? The stranger asked, flashing a grin that seemed oddly misplaced in this tense standoff. Carson's posture shifted, confusion wavering through his body in a split second. The figure stepped clear of the doorwalk, revealing an elaborate uniform adorned with insignia that meant something I couldn't yet piece together. But as he drew closer, I recognized a flicker of authority behind his playful facade. I come bearing good news, at least, it will be good news soon. You've got an admirer outside who thinks he can make a particular delivery. His smile widened, but there was something else, a flicker of concern that clouded his eyes momentarily before shifting back into casual mirth. I think we should call the police, Carson suggested tersely. No need for that, the stranger reassured, holding up his hands as if to showcase surrender. You're safe, and I'm here to talk. Yet as he spoke, I could see through the facadia shadow cast over his expression, a reminder that the world outside still pulsed with hidden dangers. Who are you? I asked, leaning slightly closer to Carson, unity igniting in our exchange. But what burned hotter behind my initial curiosity was the creeping realization that perhaps my fears were not unfounded after all. I'm from the office down the road. The statement hung there, carrying weight, unspooling threads of clarity that slipped dangerously close to my own uncertainty. We were asked to come check on you. My heart dropped to the pit of my stomach. The connection initiated a spin of inevitabilities unrolling in stitches beyond my control, and it was only then that I felt the tight grip of dread return with renewed ferocity. Mia, stay close, I cautioned again, looking into her wide eyes tinted with trepidation. But there it was, the glitter of panic catching in my peripheral, leaving me scrambling for the strength to guide our reality. As the stranger stepped further into our sanctuary, I caught Carson's eyes gaze flickering between guarded concern and probing wonder. And that's when it hit me, weight of the truth I had hoped to bury had just been unearthed, and in the wake of that recognition surged the reality that shadows held both danger and unexpected alliances. But before I could piece together the implications, the stranger leaned in, his voice dropped to a whisper. They know what you're hiding, he cautioned, the gravity of his words wrapping me tightly, anchoring every unspoken fear I had tried to distance myself from. Beneath the surface of our fragile safety, the storm was reaching out, and I had no idea how to hold on to the remnants of the world I loved as everything around me began to unravel. The room grew heavy with unspoken turmoil, the air thickening as our unexpected guest leaned closer, vulnerability cloaked beneath layers of authority. His breath felt like a whisper of danger that called around my senses, stirring up the multitude of what-ifs gnawing at the edges of my mind. What do you mean they know what I'm hiding? I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a tremor. Carson's grip tightened around my arm, anchoring me even as my world began to tilt on its axis. I could feel Mia's small body pressing against mine, her innocent trust fraying just a little at the edges of the tense atmosphere. The stranger's gaze flickered again, a shadow of concern betraying the playful exterior. You have something they want. And trust me, they are not above seeking it out through any means necessary. His tone dropped lower, laced with urgency. I don't have time to explain everything right now, but if you come with me not a chance, Carson interrupted, his voice like an unyielding steel wall. You might be here with good intentions, but you've got no idea what's really at stake. We're not going anywhere, the stranger straightened, visibly acknowledging the determination etched in Carson's stance. I understand. But you need to know that your safety is not guaranteed if you stay here. There are eyes everywhere. They'll come for you sooner than you think. A silence wrapped around us, thick and oppressive as I let his words sink in. My mind raced, a million fragments breaking apart into chaos, but one piece surged forward, the unmistakable knowledge that whatever I had been hiding had now drawn unwelcome interest from forces I had hoped to escape. Mia pulled slightly away, her eyes searching mine, the innocence reflecting back a fear I wished I could shield her from. What are they talking about, Mom? She asked, her voice a soft tremor that sliced through the storm swirling in my chest. I felt the weight of the world press upon me, and the instinct to protect her kicked in sharper than ever. It's nothing, sweetie, I whispered, but the quiet in my heart told another story. We'll be okay. We just need to listen carefully. Mom, are they gonna hurt us? Mia's voice became barely audible, but the fear in her gaze burned bright. No, sweetie, I assured, wrapping my arms around her tighter, willing the strength to project from my heart to her small frame. We're safe right here, right? My last word was directed at Carson, desperately craving affirmation in the breadth of uncertainty hanging over us. He nodded, though I could see the churning anxiety etched into his brow. For now, the stranger took a half step forward, the weight of his presence pressing on us like the suffocating blanket of fog outside. Listen to me, if they come, you won't just be facing threats. There's a plan in place. One that could ruin your lives. Enough with the theatrics, Carson barked. What do you want from us? I want to help you, the man replied earnestly, stepping away from the threshold of our sanctuary, a gesture of trust. There's a van waiting around back. It won't be safe here much longer. Nobody is leaving. Carson's voice rose, wrapping us all in a bubble of fierce defiance. We don't even know you. Do you want to gamble with your daughter's safety on a coincidence? The stranger shot back, his blue eyes flashing with urgency. I could sense the fear beneath his bravado, the acknowledgement that time was running out. My heart raced. What did it mean to gamble? To risk everything for a chance of hope that could just as easily crumble beneath the pressure of what we hadn't seen coming. The conflict battled within me, tearing at the edges of loyalty. Could I trust this man while clinging fiercely to our safety, no matter how fragile? Suddenly, a muffled voice came from the other side of the door, the crackle of a radio breaking through the tension. This is Unit 47, we're approaching your location, over. The words struck like lightning, illuminating the gravity of our predicament. A chill swept through the room, and I felt the warmth of Mia's breath quicken against my skin. Get down. Carson barked, shielding Mia instinctively as I followed his lead, adrenaline flooding my system. We dropped to the floor, the vulnerability of the moment engulfing us in a cocoon of tension. With each bead of sweat forming on the back of my neck, I turned to the stranger. What do we do? Stick together, he said. And trust me just once. I'm not your enemy. There's a way out of this, but we have to act fast. A surge of hope flickered, battling against disbelief and an undercurrent of fear that begged me to walk back into the dark comfort of silence. But as my heart drummed in my chest and the voice outside grew louder, I realized how woefully unprepared we truly were. Let's go, I whispered, my own voice no louder than a feather falling. Carson shot me a look, part bewilderment, part anger. You can't be serious, but I saw it then, the glimmer of hope in an unexpected ally, a possibility that stretched beyond our cramped living room. If trust was the bridge we needed to cross, I would summon every ounce of courage left in me to take the step forward, even knowing we could fall. The stranger reached out a hand, an expression of determination lighting his features, and I hesitated for just a moment before grasping it. Together, we stood a trio bound by uncertainty, inching closer toward the heart of chaos and away from the fragility of our known sanctuary. I had no idea where this path would lead, and yet, for the first time in what felt like eons, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could still steer our fate away from the storm. But before we could make our escape, the door exploded in water torrent of shadows crashing through our fragile haven, shattering our hopes like glass. "Mia, go!" I screamed, the world dimming into a breathless chaos as the weight of secrets unspooled around us. The noise overwhelmed me, a cacophony of chaos tearing through the room. Gravity tugged at my heart as I saw the figures barreling toward us, grim determination etched into their features, their intentions cloaked beneath a veneer of authority. In that instant, a primal instinct surged within me: protect Mia, protect Carson, protect what little we had left. "Mia, run!" I screamed again, my voice stuck against the tumult. Carson, still momentarily paralyzed by disbelief, blinked as if the world had turned to a violent blur. I grabbed Mia's hand, forcing her tiny fingers to tighten around mine. "Now!" But she stood frozen, staring wide-eyed at the strangers crashing through the door, her innocent trust from moments ago spiraling into terror. "No, Mom. Please." In that split second, I saw him, one of the intruders, his eyes dark and fierce, fixated on our little corner of the world. Something shifted in me. The same fear that threatened to unravel me began to weave strands of resolve together instead, igniting an unexpected fire. Maybe I couldn't see the way out yet, maybe we were backed against the wall. But I couldn't let fear claim us. A fragment of bravery flared within, unearthing dormant instincts, one that had long been obscured by doubt. It told me to be fierce, to defend fiercely. After all, I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. "Carson!" I shouted, my gaze locking onto his. "Get Mia to the kitchen, now." Instead of arguing, recognition flickered across his face, and I saw the protective father emerge. "Well, go out the back," he greeted, picking up Mia and darting toward the kitchen door. The intruder recognized our intent and lunged forward, blocking their escape. In a moment driven by desperation, I threw myself in front of them, a surge of exhilarating adrenaline washing away my fear. I was ready to fight. If our backs were against the wall, I would bring the fight to them. "You think you can take them?" I flashed fire in my eyes, adrenaline thrumming through my veins like electricity. The stranger's menacing grin did nothing to quell my determination. With every ounce of courage I could conjure, I pushed through the chaos and grabbed a chair, swinging it fiercely. It met the ground with a resounding crash before shattering into pieces, resembling the emotions bursting within me. "Back down!" I yelled, my voice more powerful than I felt. The spirit of protection flooded me, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the second intruder hesitate. In that split second of confusion, I booked it for the kitchen. I could hear Carson behind me, urging Mia onward, the sound of her small footsteps pushing me forward. There was an odd resonance in the air, like hope riding behind us even as danger lurked in the shadows. But as we reached the kitchen, another figure emerged, unexpectedly blocking our exit. I skidded to a halt. Heart racing, I turned to confront them, but it wasn't an enemy. "Sarah!" It was a gasp from Carson, astonishment leaving him momentarily speechless. Sarah was our neighbor, a woman who once handed us lunch when we had nothing, weeks after we moved into the neighborhood. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice rising against the dangers we just escaped. "I came to check on you after what I heard," she said, urgency pressing the words through grit teeth. I saw them. Something isn't right. From behind her, I could hear the unmistakable sounds of more footsteps approaching. Smoke curled around my heart with the realization that we had no time to lose. "Then take Mia," I urged, the weight of choice heavy upon me. "Please. Take her and get out of here." "No," Carson interjected firmly. "We don't split up. We stick together." The determination in his voice echoed my own, reaffirming the fragile thread of hope we all clung to. But even in his resolve, I saw the fear. He understood our plight better than anyone, the insistent echo of our shared vulnerability ringing loud. A frantic glance around the kitchen showed only limited options. Crouched behind the counter, adrenaline screaming through my veins, all I could think of was a way out. A temporary battleground instead of our home, still afloat on the edge of despair. Suddenly, something flickered in the peripheral window. My heart raced again, and I turned back to Sarah, pulling her in closer, my voice hushed with urgency. "Let's move through the window." Her eyes widened, shock giving way to understanding. "In and out." I nodded decisively. "We need to get one last push. It just might be our way to salvation." A thunderous crash echoed from the living room as the intruders broke through furniture, tossing limbs and hearts alike into disarray. They were closing in fast. Mia clung tightly to Carson, her tiny body pressed against his like a lifeline. The sound of a radio crackling in the distance vibrated through the tense silence, a reminder that help might be closer than we realized or more treacherous than we could bear. "We go, now!" I shouted, scrambling for the window amidst the frenzy of shifting emotions that churned inside my fear, defiance, and a fierce desire to shield my family from an unpredictable fate. I hoisted Mia upward, gentle yet forceful, willing the warmth of courage to radiate through to her. "Climb out, sweetheart." She hesitated, wrestling the fragility of childhood with the urgency of survival, but Carson's voice thrummed with comforting strength. "I'm here, Mia. I won't let you fall." Time warped as we all sprang into action, adrenaline coursing through our veins like a raging river, taking the leap of faith into the unknown. Hope mingled in the air even as the shadows crept closer behind us. Just as we carried Mia out of the window, a voice echoed from the doorway, deep and commanding, reverberating with a sense of familiarity I'd barely dared to recall. "Stop. You don't know what you're getting into." I froze, an icy shiver tracing its way through me. It was him, the stranger, the very embodiment of chaos that had come to disrupt the calm of our fragile sanctuary. A dreadful realization sunk in. He wasn't just a stranger, but a reminder of the choices we had yet to confront, the truth entwined with this battle that had only just begun. And as I glanced back, I could see the urgency in his eyes, mirroring our tumultuous journey towards safety and the intricate web of destinies intertwining. We weren't just fleeing, we were being drawn deeper into the heart of something much larger than ourselves. And as the echoes of approaching footsteps drew closer, I understood this was far from over. Our fate still bore the mark of the tempest that loomed ahead. It felt surreal, standing there amid the chaos, a flurry of emotions spiraling in my chest. I had expected the dawn to bring clarity, a new beginning, but instead, it met me with a storm of uncertainty and a heavy burden of truth still pressing down on my heart. After what felt like hours of constant retreat, we found ourselves at an old, abandoned warehouse by the outskirts of town. The air was thick with dust and the remnants of forgotten memories, dilapidated crates and rusty tools littering the ground, remnants of others who had ventured into this ghost of a structure looking for safety. Yet, as I glanced over at Mia, her innocent curiosity flickering eerily behind her brave facade, I knew this was not a safe haven, but rather a temporary fortress. Carson stood watch at the narrow entrance, his shoulders tense, eyes flickering back to me with a mix of determination and concern. "We have to figure this out," he urged, gripping the heavy door that shielded us momentarily from the chaos outside. I nodded, barely able to find my voice amidst the unease crawling under my skin. Steeling myself, I gathered Mia close beside me, her warmth a reminder of the love we were fighting for. "Mia, sweetheart," I began, kneeling down to her level, "I need you to stay close to us. This place is really just for a little break. We're going to be okay." Her eyes, wide with uncertainty, glistened with trusted trust that felt like both armor and raw vulnerability. As Carson and I exchanged glances, the tension was palpable, the air thick with unspoken fears. And there it was again, the ghost of the phone message I had received, the unyielding whisper that insisted I must confront my father's past. It loomed over me like the jagged edges of darkness threatening to swallow us whole. I could see it in Carson's eyes that he felt it too, the weight of the truth hanging heavy, yet the choice to share it felt like a final gamble. "Carson," I began hesitantly, my heart pounding despite the fragments of resolve taking shape. "About my father, what I mentioned back at the house. Let's make sure we're safe first," Carson interjected softly, concern twisting his features. We can't risk drawing any unwanted attention yet. I appreciated his instinct to protect, yet I knew the chaos we faced wasn't just physical, it was deeply woven into the fabric of our identities. Still, I nodded, swallowing back the surge of emotions. In that silence, I felt the shadows of our past racing to catch up. How could I possibly shield Mia from the turbulent truth of who I was while grappling with the mistakes of those I loved? I needed to resolve this. It was both a liberation and a burden that demanded acknowledgement. Just then, the door rattled, shattering our tense moment as a piercing voice cut through the air, familiar yet menacing sound that sent chills racing down my spine. "I know you're in there. We just want to talk." The voice dripped with mixed intent, an unsettling promise that sent panic waving through my body. Carson and I exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passing between us. This storm was not just about survival, it was about confronting what lay ahead, about confronting my past entwined with the very present that surrounded us. "We're going to have to face them," I murmured, determination igniting the flicker of hope glowing in my chest. A surge of courage flooded my veins as I felt the weight of responsibility pull me inward. "We can't keep running, Mia," Carson said gently, his voice rock steady. "Stay close to Elena. No matter what happens, you stick with." A sharp crack interrupted him as the door burst open, revealing the imposing figure of the man who had warned us. "We can resolve this peacefully," he shouted, striding into the warehouse, his presence casting a long shadow. "No more lies," I shouted, an inner fire electrifying my words. "If you're here because of my father, then give me the truth." "All of it." The man hesitated, the air thickening with anticipation. Carson stepped closer to Mia, shifting her behind his protective stature but still leaving an opening. "It was time, it was now or never." "Your father was involved in something dangerous," the man replied, his tongue clipped. "And you need to understand that the path he carved out for you is strewn with hidden agendas that have followed him, contingent upon secrets that you must hold near. They are looking for leverage, and you just became the target." A sinking feeling boiled deep within my belly as the realization washed over me like icy water. I was no longer simply running from an ancestor's shadow, I was now the vessel of consequences significant and perilous. "I can't be fighting someone else's battle if it endangers the lives of those I love," I whispered, breathless. The echo of my own voice felt foreign, piercing and raw. "We deserve the chance to find our own path, free from the chains of the past." Mia's small hand reached for mine, and I squeezed her fingers tightly, as if the act alone could shield her from anything that threatened our happiness. The man's expression morphed, something lighter flickered in his eyes. "Then you need to fight not just for yourself, but for every innocent life that got caught in this tangled web." The tension hung heavily with possibility, hanging on the cusp of resolve. As the door banged shut behind us, we were faced with darkness, but also the dawning awareness that it was a battle meant to be fought together. "Mia," Carson said, a new fierceness in his tone, "are you ready to face this with us?" Her eyes turned up, reflecting the trust that had only grown stronger amid chaos, no longer just a witness but an active participant in this swirling tempest. "I want to help," she exclaimed, her resolve clear despite the tremor in her voice. Grateful, I cupped her small face in my hands. "Then let's face it, together." Hands held tight. "No turning back." "Together," Carson echoed, taking a step closer. As we locked arms amid the reverie of uncertainty, an unexpected wave of warmth spread through me, merging with our steadying breaths, our hearts beating in unison against a world threatening to tear us apart. And as we prepared to engage whatever storm lay ahead, my phone buzzed once more in my pocket. With trembling hands, I pulled it out, seeing a message that contained a thread of hope amidst the chaos. "I'm here. Trust me." I took a deep breath, looking back at Carson and Mia. "I'm ready now. I'm not going to let fear guide me. It's time to take back what's ours." And as the weight of our resolve held us more tightly than the looming shadows ever could, I knew we could overcome whatever lay in wait. The truth could be the storm or the light guiding us home, and I intended to fight for our way back. Outside, the darkness loomed, but we would find our courage shining brighter than anything the world could throw our way. Together, we would rise, all of us, united, hearts locked in a bold embrace against the fear of the unknown. The storms, we would learn to weather. The secrets we would unfold all so that one day, we could finally bask in the warmth of our shared reality. And as I stood at that precipice, with Mia beside me and Carson's unwavering presence anchoring my soul, I realized that perhaps our greatest strength was not merely in fighting against winds of the past, but in daring to embrace the belief that love could conquer shadows, not just the light that follows, but the light that guides us home.